Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It is time once again to continue on with my Group 1 car reviews, in which we're hoping to review each and every single Group 1 machine and then get a definitive ranking based on performance, looks and overall usability. Up today we're going back to the VGT class of Group 1 vehicles, this time for the second one of the bunch. This is the Audi VGT Group 1. It's a weird case of a fairly boring and pretty useless vehicle actually getting turned into a full-blown racing monster. This thing is absolutely fantastic. As you can see when we head over to the Audi dealership, you can purchase this for 1,000,000 credits, no more or no less than a fairly standard price point, both for a VGT and a lot of the Group 1 vehicles as well. 894.61 performance points is a whole bunch for a Group 1 vehicle. It is four-wheel drive, 735 brake horsepower, turbocharged and weighs 1,250 kilograms, which is a fair amount more than a lot of the other Group 1 vehicles that are in this class. So it may have a disadvantage there, but I'll kind of explain why it's really not necessarily a bad thing for this vehicle. So the Audi Group 1 VGT has always been a bit of a underdog vehicle for me. It's one that you don't really hear much about, and I think that is mainly just down to the fact that its EV counterpart, or the more road-going VGT, is very much a long forgotten about car. Okay, it looks very cool inside, it does have relatively good performance, but it's an electric vehicle, meaning that a lot of people will just straight away assume that the Group 1 follows in suit of that and will also be an EV. But this is not the case. This is a obviously full combustion engine, hybrid power, I believe. I'm pretty sure it did have the hybrid bar when I was testing it, and overall it is a very powerful vehicle. I would say in terms of the performance stats, you're getting a very nice mix between the 2016 LMP1 Audi with kind of the extra performance in terms of its top end over that hybrid vehicle. So in terms of the top end of this vehicle, it does seem to top out around about a little bit more than some of those more kind of 2016-ish LMP1 Group 1 vehicles. So you are having a bit of extra performance there. In terms of the hybrid, it does last a decent amount of time. It's definitely in the kind of not out there with sort of the Porsche 919 in terms of, you know, its hybrid depletion. It does deplete a lot quicker than that. But overall, in terms of the performance of this vehicle, it's very much on par with a lot of those LMP1 vehicles around about the 2016 era. So overall performance of this vehicle is absolutely fantastic. Everything from the top speed being a little bit better than the 2016 LMP1 vehicles, the acceleration being absolutely fantastic, the handling being great, obviously due to that four-wheel drive system, and obviously the brakes being absolutely fantastic. That little bit of extra weight, whilst you can initially feel it, you may find yourself getting into a nice little sweet groove with this car, which I certainly found myself doing. It's very easy to push this car and feel like it's not just going to kind of break away or, you know, kind of overshoot itself into a barrier. It's certainly a very drivable car, and overall I think anyone at realistically any skill level could jump in this thing and do relatively well. Now for me, this vehicle kind of feels like a subcategory of Group 1 vehicles, along with other vehicles such as the Bugatti VGT Group 1, where they don't quite fit the normal mold for a LMP1 or Group 1 vehicle and such. You just don't really imagine these things actually sitting in Group 1. They kind of look far too bulky, far too kind of, you know, road going in a weird sense, which I know might, you know, sound very weird to someone since it's clearly not a road car, but they look very bulky and very kind of down to earth in their style, and you can definitely tell that these have been sort of designed off of pre-existing models and then made a little bit more futuristic. So it really doesn't feel like it just fits the norm for a Group 1 vehicle, at least in terms of GT7, where the Alpine definitely looks absolutely bizarre and ridiculous. It kind of feels like it fits more well into Group 1 in terms of a styling standpoint than something like this, the Audi VGT. But it is a Group 1 vehicle, and like I said, it's kind of a case of the very, I guess, boring and very kind of average road going version getting turned into an absolute monster in terms of the, you know, overall Group 1 version. Again, kind of moving away from the EV styling where it doesn't need any intakes and stuff like that, and you'll see a lot of kind of sealed off parts of the vehicle, obviously the EV where it makes absolutely zero sound, and then getting kind of, you know, transformed into this absolute ridiculous monster. And overall it does make a fantastic noise, very much in line with the typical Audi sound of Group 1. So overall it is a fantastic vehicle, and I really do have zero complaints about it. In fact, in terms of the performance itself, it outperformed every single expectation I had for this. Now originally this was a car that I reviewed all the way back in, I want to say, around about May to June of 2022. Now at the time we were on completely different physics. This was a car that for the longest time was all the way up the top of the leaderboard. It just felt almost unbeatable. Again, in terms of the performance and ease of drivability back then, this car was absolutely a monster and a rocket ship. However, it's a car that since the physics changed in around about, I think, March of 2023, I've not really touched it, so I didn't necessarily know what to expect. But it was nice to be able to jump into the car and see that, well, not really anything's changed. It's still an absolute monster at pretty much almost any track. The only real downside you will probably see over something like some of the Group C machinery that we see in Group 1 is that overall top speed. So it's something like the high speed ring, you know, Le Mans on the big straights and such. You'll probably see a deficit there where it's going to lose probably plenty of time if you're not running them on BOP and such. However, just overall on the more tight and twisty sections, this thing can keep up with the best of them. Again, the only real reference point we have in terms of these Group 1 reviews so far in terms of the VGT vehicles is the Alpine. Again, like you will probably know, I just wasn't a huge fan of that car. It felt very off the pace. It just didn't quite feel right, whereas this version of a VGT Group 1 just feels absolutely fantastic. If you were going to go for any of these two so far, certainly head towards the Audi, give it a try. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people kind of get put off because of the standard VGT model being an EV, and a lot of people thinking that it's almost completely useless, and a lot of people that may not look into the stats and such may not have kind of noticed that it's gone from an EV to obviously a, you know, pretty standard typical Group 1 vehicle. So yeah, definitely check this one out if you haven't already. It's definitely going to be worth that 1 million credits. In terms of its time though, this is what shocked me the most. Yes, it does have the most performance points by quite a bit, but it also has a ton of weight on there, and usually with these VGT vehicles they just naturally seem to fall off the pace. However, the Audi VGT currently sits second overall in the rankings and was only just off the Toyota TS050 hybrid, which we reviewed a few days prior. So certainly a car that has kind of exceeded expectations. It absolutely smashes the likes of the GR010 so far, which does need re-reviewing, even beating the likes of the front wheel drive GTR LM, and obviously those absolute monsters in a straight line, the Group C machines. And as you can see, you know, the other previous Alpine VGT isn't even seen on the list. That's how high up the Audi VGT actually is. So overall, for 1 million credits, you can certainly do a lot worse than the Audi VGT. If you haven't already, I would fully recommend just giving this car a try. I think a lot of people do get put off because of that EV of the standard version, but don't let that put you off. This one isn't an EV. It makes a great sound, a ton of performance, and is well worth the asking price. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you on the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.